My beloved husband chose a street vendor's food over mine. The reason would shock you. This is my true life story, and I hope you guys are ready to watch and learn. Every married woman deserved to watch this. Ikorodu was one of the most bustling cities in the entire Southwest. It was a big, busy city where the streets were always packed with cars. People there had to wake up early to get to work on time because the roads were so crowded. They would leave their homes when it was still dark outside, hoping to avoid the worst traffic. The roads in Alarape were not in good shape. There were many potholes and bumps, making driving slow and difficult. Because of this, many people spend hours stuck in their cars each day. They would go to work early and return home late at night, tired from a long day and a challenging journey. Most parents in Ikorodu worked very hard to make money and support their families. But because they were always away from home for so long, they didn't get to spend much time with their children. Many kids in the city were looked after by nannies. These nannies fed the children, helped them with homework, and put them to bed at night. Life in Ikorodu was tough. People worked all week long, often from Monday to Saturday. They only had Sundays to rest and spend time with their families. There was always noise from cars honking, people shouting, and machines working during the day and even at night. Weekends in Ikorodu were precious. People used this time to catch up on sleep, do housework, and finally be with their loved ones. They could forget about the busy roads and long work days for a little while. Then, when Monday comes, they would start the whole routine again. Because of the nature of Ikorodu city, many residents, especially singles, hardly had time to prepare food in their houses. They either ate out at restaurants and eateries in town or ordered cooked food and stocked it in their refrigerators. There were many food vendors in Ikorodu, as the food business became one of the most lucrative due to the city's nature. They all made good money from the food business. However, one particular food vendor stood out among all the others. She was simply known as Iya Omalara. Iya Omalara was a dark and beautiful plus-sized woman in her mid-50s. Nobody could remember when she first arrived or where she came from. It was as if she had always been there. Always dressed in the Yoruba traditional attire, iro and buba, with a headscarf wrapped elegantly around her head, Iya Omalara hardly smiled and was never cheerful. Iya Omalara's restaurant was located in the center of the city. It was a shabby and unattractive restaurant generally referred to as Iya Omalara's buka. As unattractive as it seemed, however, people flocked to her restaurant. The inviting aroma of her food pulled people from every corner of the city to her stall. The stall was never empty. She served different menus, amala, ewedu, and gbegiri, with assorted meats, all cooked to perfection. She also sold rice, beans, simo, and vegetable soup. People often sang her praise and described her food as the most delicious in the city. There was a small house behind her stall. That was where Iya Omalara lived, alone. So many things were off about her. Unlike other sellers who opened for business in the morning and closed at night, Iya Omalara's food stall opened for business by 4 p.m. every day, and she sold until dawn the next day. Yes, she sold food all through the night, and people still patronized her. Most people returned very late from work, some at midnight. Iya Omalara's buka was their only hope of getting cooked food at such ungodly hours. Iya Omalara rarely spoke except when necessary. A simple bawoni, or thank you, was all you would hear from her. She had one employee who helped her in serving her customers and washing the dishes. Her name was Sidi. Sidi did more of the talking, while Iya Omalara only served the food. Customers related more with her and only spoke to Iya Omalara when necessary. Another strange thing about Iya Omalara was that she never ran out of food daily. She always had people's orders, no matter the quantity needed, yet nobody ever saw her going to the market or receiving a delivery of foodstuff from anybody, yet her meat, vegetables, and other foodstuff always seemed very fresh. Despite all these strange signs, people continued to troop into her stall daily to eat and drink. Every day at the end of work, young men and women made their way to Iya Omalara's food stall to eat to their full. Some married men even preferred her food to their wives. This made their wives very unhappy, but the husbands didn't care. They continued to patronize her. Some very busy working-class women also bought food from her and stocked them at home. Her customers continued to increase by the day because people who tasted her food invited their friends to taste the goodness of Iya Omalara's food. Rumors began to spread among a few groups of people. Some whispered that she had a connection with spirits and cooked with charms. Others said that the food she served wasn't entirely out of this world. Despite the rumors, her loyal customers paid deaf ears. They didn't care about all the things they heard about Iya Omalara. All they wanted was to fill their hungry stomachs with her sumptuous meals. One day, a man entered Iya Omalara's buka to eat. He had a persistent cough that had lingered for days and refused to go. He ordered amala and ewedu, and by the time he finished his food, he noticed that he was no longer coughing. He was surprised because he had taken different medications, including herbs, but the cough persisted. Iya, a truly mysterious, like the rumor going round the city, he said, as he walked back to his workshop that day. Bayo the man got to his workshop and narrated his experience at Iya Omalara's buka to his colleagues. My persistent cough stopped immediately I finished eating Iya Omalara's amala, he said. It was just a coincidence, his colleague, Omirinda, replied to him. They all didn't believe an ordinary food could cure his chronic cough. Bayo got tired of trying to convince them. He went back to his work, and they all did the same. However, Omirinde became restless after the discussion. He had always suspected that there was more to Iya Omalara's food. Everything about that woman is just mysterious. I will dig deep into this matter and unravel the mystery, he said quietly as he continued with his work. He began to plan how to go about his investigation to unravel the mystery. Iya Omalara's buka continued to experience growth, and her customers kept increasing by the day. Other food vendors around her began to complain about low sales. They only made sales in the morning and afternoon. But as soon as Iya Omalara opened her buka in the evening, around 4 p.m., customers began to walk past their stalls to Iya Omalara's buka, ignoring them completely. Two food vendors, the owners of Unje Iye and Sebiotimo, had a private meeting and decided to teach Iya Omalara a very big lesson. They gathered a group of rowdy young and notorious men and told them terrible things about Iya Omalara. She cooks her food with charms. In fact, the food she serves isn't entirely of this world. We can't continue to keep quiet and pretend not to notice it, they told the group. If we don't act now, we or our loved ones might fall victims of the negative effect of her charms, they added. They bought the men cigarettes and dry gin and gave them some money. They told the men to go and destroy her wares and make sure she has no food left to sell. The men, who had also been hearing rumors about Iya Omalara, set out to carry out the mission. They got to Iya Omalara's buka and began to harass her. They knocked over her pots, spilling hot soup onto the dusty ground. They scattered her plates and cutleries. Next, they moved to her jollof rice and the other meals she already prepared. They turned everything on the ground. Her customers, who were eating all, took to their heels, wondering what Iya Omalara had done wrong. They all knew her to be a very quiet and easygoing person. She never made trouble with anyone. Some of them, however, knew those young men to be very troublesome and went about causing trouble for no reason. While they were destroying her things, Iya Omalara didn't move or try to stop them. She simply remained in her seat and watched them silently. Bisi, her employee, ran into her house behind the stall. She hid inside and refused to come out for fear of being hurt by the men. Iya Omalara continued to watch them as they destroyed her things. When they were done, they all moved towards her, where she sat. The leader of the boys opened his mouth to talk, but discovered he lost his voice. He was still struggling to say something when he noticed Iya Omalara staring at him intensely, without blinking her eyes. After about 30 seconds, she suddenly began to blink her eyes continuously. Immediately, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. He began to scream as he held his stomach in pain. His friends looked at him, and they were visibly scared and confused. "What is wrong with you, Egbone?" one of them asked, but he couldn't respond. He just continued to point to his stomach. They hurriedly dragged him away, shouting apologies over their shoulders. "We are sorry, Iya Omalara. Please forgive us," they pleaded as they left. Bisi came out of her hiding immediately after they left. She wanted to start clearing up the mess caused, but Iya Omalara signaled that she should stop. "Go home," she told her. Sidi reluctantly left, wondering how her madam would clear the mess alone. Iya Omalara got up and entered the house, leaving everything the way it was. Customers kept trooping into her stall the rest of the evening. They saw the mess caused, but didn't see Sidi or Iya Omalara. The next day, the whole place was neat, and there was no sign that anything had happened the previous day. She continued with her business, and people continued to patronize her. The men's leader couldn't talk or eat throughout the day. Very early the next day, he was able to speak, and the pain in his stomach was gone. From that day on, he stopped causing trouble. He became very gentle and respected people's space. He was grateful for a second chance. Iya Omalara taught him a lesson. Iya Omalara's business continued to flourish. This hurt the other two vendors who had sent the boys. Who exactly is this woman, and who gave her powers? They wondered. The notorious Egban and his gangs suddenly became good boys after their encounter with her. The women promised to deal with her. She can enjoy all the patronage while it lasts. We will surely bring her down, one said to the other Omirinde, who had vowed to unravel the mystery behind Iya Omalara, began his investigation. Every morning, he would stroll around her buka to see if he could find anything or even a clue. After doing that for over 2 weeks, he found nothing. All he saw was Iya Omalara preparing the day's meal, assisted by Sidi. He decided to change his approach. He stayed awake all night, wanting to know when Iya Omalara would close. After 3 days, he was sure that she usually closed around 4 a.m., but she allowed Sidi to go home by 1 a.m. since her house was in the same neighborhood. He gave himself 2 days' break after the discovery. After the 2 days, Omirinde continued with his investigation. He would hide in a nearby uncompleted building, very close to Iya Omalara's buka, around 4 a.m. He did that again for another 1 week, hoping to see something mysterious happening. Still, he didn't see anything. Iya Omalara would wash all her plates and pots after the day's sale, after which she would retire into her house to sleep. Omirinde became even more confused. I know there is more to this woman than meets the eye. Why am I not able to see anything? He asked himself. Immediately he remembered a tale told by his late grandmother. He remembered her saying, "You cannot see extraordinary things with ordinary eyes." In the story, a man took a dog's room, discharged from the dog's eyes, and put it in his eyes, and he was able to see some strange things. Omirinde, who had a dog, quietly went back home. He made up his mind. I will do what Aya Agba said in that story. Maybe I will be able to uncover some things about Aya Omalara, he said. He didn't go to work that day. He continued to monitor his dog to see if it had room. Around 3 a.m., he went to check on the dog in its cave. He smiled to himself when he checked and saw room in the corner of the dog's eyes. He collected it and put it in his own, holding it down with a sticker. Then, he made his way to his usual hiding spot to see what he would find. Iya Omalara, as usual, began to round up by 4 a.m. after the last customer left. She began washing her cooking utensils as usual. Omirinde continued to watch. Suddenly, some weird-looking women dressed in red appeared. They began to help Iya Omalara with the cleaning. As they cleaned, they spoke with Iya Aduke, but in strange language. Iya Omalara in turn replied them. She spoke so well and laughed hysterically as they continued to clean. Omirinde was shocked at what he saw. First, Iya Omalara hardly spoke to people. Although he wasn't her customer, he had heard his colleagues talk about her and how she hardly spoke to customers, or spoke only when it was extremely necessary. He covered his mouth with his hands to avoid screaming. He was scared and began to shiver. He was still watching in awe when he saw Iya Omalara turn and was making her way towards the uncompleted building where he was hiding. He decided it was time to leave. He got up and wanted to run, but couldn't raise his legs. He continued to struggle unsuccessfully, got to him. She stared him in the eyes. He became very scared but couldn't shout. He suddenly had a tongue-tie. Young man, what exactly are you looking for? You have been moving around, trying to look for what is not missing, Iya Omalara said. From the day you decided to snoop around, I knew. All the days you were moving around and hiding here, I knew, but I ignored you because I understand your curiosity. but then you decided to go extra mile. Why? You are not a journalist nor a police officer sent to carry out any investigation. So why the obsession? She asked him. Omirinda closed his eyes, wishing he was dreaming. He wanted to beg her to have mercy on him, but he couldn't just speak. Eni tubawa iwakua, odi dandan kori irikuri, Iya Omolara said, a Yoruba adage. I will not hurt you because I am a mother. You can go, but let me see how you are going to explain what your eyes saw here today, Iya Omolara said, and turned to leave. Omirinde finally was able to move his legs. He ran as fast as he could. He got to his house, locked himself up, and covered himself in bed from head to toe. When it was dawn, he got up and opened his door. He went to work but couldn't speak. He tried to, but couldn't. He could eat and do every other thing with his mouth except speaking. Omirinda lost his ability to speak for good. Iya Omolara's customers were more of men than women. The single men were more than the married. Most of the married men had had issues with their wives because of their frequent visit to Iya Omolara's buka. Some of their wives already got used to their husbands abandoning their food for Iya Omolara's own. One of such married men who was having serious issues with his wife because of Iya Omolara was Bode. Bode was a mechanical engineer who was married to Falila, his beautiful wife. Falila and Bode had met at a wedding party. Faye was the caterer of the day. She made different delicious meals including amala, pounded yam, ofada rice, fried and jollof rice, among others. Bode ordered for pounded yam and vegetable soup. He enjoyed the meal so much that he decided to go and commend the caterer. He walked up to her and told her he enjoyed her meal. Faye was so grateful for the feedback. She quickly gave him her business card and asked him to market her to his friends. That was how Bodhi got her number. Okay then, regards to your husband and children, Bode said as he was about to walk away from her. I am not married, sir, Faye said respectfully. Bode, whose relationship had ended a few months earlier, saw it as an opportunity to ask her out. He was also a lover of good food and saw marrying Faye as an added advantage. Few days later, he called her and they hung out. That was how their relationship began. A year after, Bode and Faye got married in a glamorous wedding, and they began their marital journey. Kunle couldn't stop praising his wife's cooking skills. She made him very delicious meals that he promised himself never to eat out. They had been married for 5 years and had 2 children when Bode got a big job offer in Ikorodu. The job offer was a juicy one that came with a house and an official car. Bode and his wife were so excited. Bode had to relocate first to enable him settle down properly and allow the children round off the term in school before joining him. It was during this period that he started eating at Iya Omolara's buka. A colleague introduced him to the restaurant, which was just a stone throw away from the company, and he began to patronize her. When his wife and children eventually joined them, Bode refused to eat his wife's food. She would pack lunch for him to eat at work, but he would return the food, saying he ate at Iya Omolara's buka. He didn't even see anything wrong in it, as he was very carefree, telling her. Who is this Iya Omolara? Faye often wondered. Sometimes he would give the food to his junior colleagues to eat, and then go over to Iya Omolara's buka to eat Faye. Initially didn't pay much attention to it, but as time went by, food began to waste because of her husband's refusal to eat. Then she became worried. When she began to complain, Bode tried to adjust for about 3 days. He began to eat her food, but he didn't find it tasty at all. He couldn't bear it. He went back to eating from Iya Omolara's buka and only ate his wife's food at weekends when he was home. Faye complained and got tired of complaining. She decided that she must do something, else she would lose her marriage. She thought of going to confront Iya Omolara, but she changed her mind. My business is with my husband, not Iya Omolara, she said to herself. Omolara's father was a spiritualist, and she understood that some things could be more spiritual than it is seen physically. She decided to visit her father on a weekend. She went with her kids. I can't risk this man taking my kids out to eat from that mysterious woman, she said to herself. After they exchanged pleasantries, Faye explained her situation to her father, who listened to her with rapt attention. After she was done, he took her into the shrine and began to make consultations, mentioning Iya Omolara at intervals. When he was done, he turned to his daughter and began to ask her questions. "Does your husband still give you money for upkeep?" he asked her. "Yes, Bami. He even gives me more these days," she answered. "Has he stopped making love to you since he began to eat the woman's food?" He further asked. "No, Bami. Our love life is very intact," Faye answered. "So, that means everything is working out well between both of you, except his habit of eating Iya Aduki's food, right?" "Yes, Bami," Faye confirmed. "Then let him continue to eat the food, as long as it doesn't affect other areas of your family life." "This case is bigger than me, my daughter," he told her. "Iya Omalara has a more powerful force backing her, and I have just been warned to keep off," he added. "And if I don't want to let this be, what would happen, Bami?" Faye asked, looking very worried. "You will go down if you try anything funny. Just ignore them," her father said. On a final note, Omalara returned home feeling sad. She was really hoping that her father would help her. "If my father, who is so powerful, could ask me to ignore her, then I better adhere to it," she said to her. "But who exactly is this woman, and how come she is this powerful?" she wondered. She stopped preparing meals for Bode. She made food only for herself and her children, and Kunle never asked her for food. Aya Omalara's business continued to grow. Customers trooped in daily to eat, while other food vendors watched on helplessly.